Archaeologists continue to scratch their heads over thousands of enigmatic finds that don't fit into traditional human history. Massive. In upcoming issues, we will examine mysterious artifacts that could completely reshape our understanding of the past, from complex gear mechanisms to anatomically impossible stone statues. Plato claimed that Atlantis was a powerful maritime empire located beyond the Pillars of Hercules, which is the modern-day Strait of Gibraltar. According to him, the island sank as a result of a catastrophe, becoming a symbol of a lost civilization. Over the centuries, researchers have tried to determine the location of this mysterious Atlantis. Others point to the Caribbean Sea and even Antarctica, suggesting that ice cover could have hidden the remains of an ancient civilization. For example, in 2005, French researcher and writer Benjamin Foulon proposed that Atlantis could have been located in the territory of modern-day Puerto Rico, based on underwater structures discovered in that region. However, many scholars believe that the myth of Atlantis could have been inspired by real events, such as the destructive eruption of the volcano on the island of Thera, or the impact of a meteorite, which affected the climate and ecosystem of the region. In recent decades, interest in Atlantis has grown, and scientists have begun conducting research on ancient civilizations such as the Sumerians and Egyptians, which could have inspired Plato to create this legend. Atlantis has become a cultural symbol, inspiring numerous books, films, and scientific studies, such as the work of archaeologist and writer Greg Cameron, who in 2006 published his theory about the possible connection between Atlantis and the Sumerian civilization, claiming that many myths and legends about lost lands have their roots in real historical events. Andrew Scott from the University of Plymouth conducted excavations in an area they believed could have been part of Atlantis, discovering underwater structures resembling the ruins of ancient buildings. Among the many theories about the location of Atlantis, one of the most widespread is the hypothesis that it was located in the Mediterranean Sea. This version is based on the accounts of the ancient Greek philosopher Plato, who described Atlantis as an island situated beyond the Pillars of Hercules, which some researchers believe could refer to the modern-day Strait of Gibraltar. Researchers such as the Greek archaeologist Dimitris Katsanos suggest that Atlantis could have been located on the island of Thera, now known as Santorini, which experienced a catastrophic volcanic eruption around 1600 BCE. This eruption led to the destruction of the Minoan civilization, which could be linked to the mentions of a powerful and highly advanced culture of Atlantis. However, not everyone agrees with this version. Some scientists, such as the German researcher Armin Fernandez, propose an alternative, claiming that Atlantis could have been located not in the Mediterranean Sea, but in the Atlantic Ocean on an island that was once part of an ancient continent. This hypothesis has been supported by findings in the area of the Bahamas, where researchers discovered underwater structures in 2012 that could be remnants of ancient buildings. Additionally, in recent decades, there have been numerous theories linking Atlantis to the coast of North Africa. For example, in 2006, artifacts were found in the area of modern-day Libya that could have belonged to an ancient civilization with technologies comparable to those described in the myths of Atlantis. One of the most unusual proposals is the hypothesis that Atlantis could have been located in the Caribbean Sea. Some researchers, including Professor Julian Sanders, suggest that a submerged city could be located off the coast of Cuba, which could have been connected to the legendary Atlantis. In 2013, underwater images were taken that showed geometrically correct structures, which some scientists believe could be part of an ancient city. These findings have sparked interest and discussion among archaeologists and historians, but there are still no concrete evidence confirming the existence of Atlantis. In the mythology of ancient Greek authors such as Plato, Atlantis is described as a civilization with highly advanced technologies and a powerful army, raising questions about how and why such a culture could have disappeared. Speculated technologies and achievements of Atlantis have sparked interest not only among historians, but also among scientists studying the possibilities of ancient civilizations. In particular, in the dialogues Timaeus and Critias, he describes flying machines that used forces allowing them to hover in the air. Some researchers suggest that the Atlanteans might have used magnetic or even anti-magnetic technologies, similar to modern concepts of anti-gravity. Additionally, it is believed that they had other advanced transportation means, such as submarines, that could traverse the oceans using energy derived from crystals, which are said to possess unique properties. Myths also mention meteorological devices that could induce or prevent rain, controlling atmospheric phenomena. This indicates that the Atlanteans had deep knowledge in meteorology and physics, which they applied to their needs. Furthermore, communication technologies among the Atlanteans could have included devices enabling information exchange over long distances. Some researchers even propose that the Atlanteans might have used crystals for signal transmission, similar to modern communication methods such as mobile phones or radio systems. There are references to surgical methods and the use of natural remedies for treating various diseases, which suggests knowledge of medicinal herbs and human anatomy. These achievements, if the myths are to be believed, created an image of a civilization capable of significant technological breakthroughs and manipulation of the surrounding world. However, despite all these speculations, concrete evidence of the existence of such a highly advanced civilization has not been found, highlighting the complexity of studying the Atlantean theme. Archaeologists continue their searches, but so far no artifacts have been discovered that could confirm these incredible technologies. For instance, this event not only erased the city from the face of the earth, but also froze its culture in time, leaving us with numerous artifacts that help us understand the daily life of Romans. However, natural disasters do not always act so quickly. In the case of the Minoan civilization on Crete, the fall of this culture is linked to the catastrophic eruption of the Thera volcano, which occurred around 1600 years before our era. The disaster led not only to the physical destruction, but also to long-term changes in the climate, resulting in famine and social unrest. Human activity also significantly influences the disappearance of civilization traces. For example, many ancient cities were abandoned not only due to external threats, but also due to the exhaustion of natural resources. In the case of the Maya, their civilization flourished during the classical period, but by the 9th century AD, they faced ecological problems caused by excessive deforestation and agricultural overpopulation. These factors led to a decline in population and ultimately the collapse of their society. Time and nature also contribute to the disappearance of civilization traces. For example, the famous Harappan civilization, which existed on the territory of modern Pakistan, left behind numerous cities, but over 5,000 years, their architecture was destroyed by water and time. It is also worth noting that many ancient texts and records were lost due to changes in climate, making it difficult to understand their culture and history. The disappearance of civilizations is a complex and multifaceted process where natural disasters, human actions, and time play important roles. Ancient Egypt, which lasted for more than 3,000 years, was also unable to avoid this fate. Its monuments were destroyed, and its art and culture gradually faded from human memory, as evidenced by numerous findings that show how even the most magnificent empires can disappear. According to his account, Atlantis was a powerful civilization that existed 9,000 years before his time and was destroyed by a catastrophe. This idea has inspired numerous researchers and writers, from ancient times to the present day. For instance, in the 19th century, researcher Edward Lee created a map of the presumed location of Atlantis in the Atlantic Ocean, based on Plato's descriptions. Scientific research, such as the work of archaeologist Javier Noriega in 2012, has led to searches for possible locations of Atlantis on islands in the Aegean Sea, including Santorini and Crete, where devastating volcanic eruptions occurred. This legend has also inspired numerous cultural works, including novels, films, and even video games, demonstrating its enduring influence on popular culture. For example, Jason Burke's novel Atlantis, published in 2001, retells the myth of Atlantis through the prism of modern technology and archaeology. In science, the discussion of Atlantis has become a subject of interdisciplinary research, combining archaeology, geology, and mythology. An example is the work of geologist Erich von Däniken, who in his book Chariots of the Gods in 2004 claims that Atlantis could have been connected to ancient extraterrestrial civilizations, highlighting how far some theories have gone. Scientific research has also emphasized the need for a critical approach to myths, considering them as reflections of human psychology and historical memory. Scholars such as Professor of Historical Anthropology Christopher S. Taylor, in his work Myths and Reality in 2006, assert that myths of lost civilizations, including Atlantis, often serve as a metaphor for exploring human experience and the quest for knowledge. The legend of Atlantis is often linked to the idea of utopia, making it particularly appealing to those seeking an ideal society. In this context, it is worth mentioning that in the 19th century, many socialists, such as Edward B.B.B.B.B. There are for instance, in 1999, a group of geologists led by Dr. Eric Bailey conducted an analysis of the seabed around the island of Santorini and discovered traces of strong earthquakes that occurred around 1,600 years before our era, which coincides with the period when Plato described the fall of Atlantis. Other researchers, such as Dr. Christopher Hugg, propose a theory about a volcanic eruption, suggesting that an eruption of the volcano on Santorini could have caused catastrophic tsunamis that destroyed nearby islands and possibly Atlantis. Tsunamis capable of such destruction have been recorded in history, for example, in 2014, when a tsunami struck the Indonesian island of Sumatra after an earthquake of magnitude 9. However, despite the multitude of theories, none of them has been definitively confirmed, and the search for Atlantis continues. In the 20th century, numerous expeditions were conducted in search of specific evidence of the existence of this civilization. In 2006, a group of researchers led by Dr. James Cameron conducted underwater research in the Bermuda Triangle, assuming that Atlantis could have been located there. However, despite the efforts, the results of these investigations did not bring any convincing findings that would confirm the existence of Atlantis. Moreover, geological research shows that even if such a continent had existed, its disappearance could have been caused by a combination of factors such as changes in sea level and climatic changes. For example, in 2005, a group of climatologists from the University of California provided data indicating that global warming at the end of the last ice age could have led to a rapid rise in sea level, which in turn could have flooded low-lying areas that could have been part of Atlantis. These data emphasize the need for a more thorough study not only of myths, but also of historical and natural conditions that could have influenced the fate of ancient civilizations. Despite the lack of specific evidence, the search for Atlantis continues, and new technologies such as satellite imagery and underwater archaeology give hope that in the future we may find more convincing evidence of its existence. In 2019, researchers from Brown University conducted an analysis of underwater structures off the coast of Spain, assuming that they could be part of a submerged civilization. The search for Atlantis, the legendary sunken civilization, has been actively developing since Plato described it in his dialogues Timaeus and Critias around 3,000 years ago. These texts, written in the 4th century BC, sparked a wave of interest among scholars, researchers, and writers, giving rise to numerous theories about the location of Atlantis. For instance, in the early 20th century, researcher and writer Ignatius Donnelly published the book Atlantis, the Antediluvian World, in which he proposed that Atlantis was the source of many ancient civilizations, such as Egypt and Mesopotamia. His views had a significant impact on popularizing the myth of Atlantis in culture, inspiring authors like Arthur C. Clarke and Jules Verne. In the 20th century, scientists began using modern equipment to study underwater structures that might be connected to Atlantis. For example, in 1991, a group of archaeologists led by Dr. Richard Foster discovered underwater stone formations off the coast of the Bahamas, which were potentially part of a sunken continent. In 2003, researchers from the University of California in Los Angeles used underwater drones to explore a structure found in the Puerto Rico area. These drones provided detailed images and three-dimensional models confirming the existence of underwater walls and other human-made structures. In 2008, an expedition led by Dr. John Boker recorded unusual geoglyphs off the coast of Japan, which were also linked to the theory of Atlantis. These structures, according to scientists, could be the result of human activity, as they bore no resemblance to natural formations. Analysis of these findings suggested that a civilization with advanced technologies may have existed in this region. Furthermore, in 2009, a group of Greek archaeologists discovered underwater ruins on the island of Santorini, dating back approximately 7,000 years. These ruins are also associated with the theory of a great civilization that may have existed before the known ancient Greek cultures. As a result of such discoveries, such as the structures off the coast of Spain, the search for Atlantis has become not only a cultural phenomenon, but also a scientific one, contributing to the development of underwater archaeology and technologies. Throughout different times and cultures, Atlantis has been perceived as a symbol of lost wisdom and technological progress, continuing to inspire new generations of researchers. Considering the abundance of legends and facts surrounding this topic, the search for Atlantis remains relevant and continues to spark debate among scholars and history enthusiasts. 80 years after the first serious underwater structure studies related to Atlantis, they continue to this day, attracting the attention of both scientists and tourists. First described by Plato in his dialogues Timaeus and Critias around 350 years before our era, he claimed that Atlantis was a powerful empire that existed approximately 9,000 years before his time and was destroyed by a catastrophe. This description inspired many writers and artists to create works dedicated to the lost continent. For instance, in the 18th century, English writer Francis Bacon described an ideal society based on scientific discoveries and ethical principles in his utopia, New Atlantis. In the 19th century, writers such as Edgar Allan Poe and Gustave Flaubert also addressed the theme of Atlantis, emphasizing its mystery and tragedy. Art, too, did not remain unaffected. Artists like Caspar David Friedrich depicted philosophical landscapes that could have been inspired by myths of lost civilizations. Further, the legend of Atlantis has also undergone transformation through various cultures. In medieval texts, it became a symbol of lost knowledge, while in Renaissance literature, it often served as a metaphor for criticizing contemporary society. Scientific research on Atlantis continues to this day, encompassing archaeological excavations, study of underwater structures, and analysis of ancient texts. For example, in the 20th century, archaeologists like Manuel A. Fernandez. In the 21st century, scientists from various fields, including geology and archaeology, increasingly turn to the legend in the context of interdisciplinary research, highlighting both its cultural and scientific significance. Scientific and cultural research on Atlantis not only raises questions about its existence, but also contributes to the development of ideas about lost civilizations that continue to captivate human minds. There are opinions that this legend reflects not only historical but also psychological aspects of human nature, striving to understand its origins and place in the world. For example, attempts to find Atlantis often lead to discussions of broader themes, such as the nature of civilization, moral values, and the relationship between humans and nature. As a result, the influence of the Atlantis legend on various aspects of life remains unchanged, underscoring its unique place in the cultural memory of humanity. In the 21st century, active research on underwater structures continues, and in 2020, a group of scientists from the University of Leeds announced a discovery that may be connected to the mythical Atlantis, finding underwater ruins off the coast of Spain. Christopher Mellon, a former Deputy Minister of Defense of the USA, proposed that Atlantis could have been the result of a highly advanced civilization possessing technologies beyond the reach of contemporary humanity. This maritime technologies. Scientists are also actively exploring the possibility of extraterrestrial life, which has become particularly relevant with the discovery of exoplanets. For example, research shows that the presence of liquid water is a key factor for life, making such planets the focus of intense scrutiny. Further, within this project, a vast amount of data has been analyzed, and in 2018, a team of scientists from the University of California, Berkeley, discovered an unusual signal from the direction of the star Giza, which remains unexplained to this day. Such findings fuel interest in the theory that Atlantis might have been a highly advanced society with technologies capable of venturing beyond Earth. Research conducted on planets like Mars or the moons of Jupiter and Saturn shows that conditions for life are not limited to Earth, and that there could be numerous places in our solar system where life might have developed in various forms. In recent years, there has also been a growing interest in so-called exoplanets, located beyond our solar system, which may have atmospheres similar to Earth's. For example, in 2020, astronomers discovered the exoplanet K2-18b, located about 130 light-years from Earth, and possessing an atmosphere containing water vapor, making it one of the most promising candidates for the search for extraterrestrial life. The legend of Atlantis, described by the ancient Greek philosopher Plato in his dialogues Timaeus and Critias, has become one of the most discussed topics in the history of culture and science. Plato claimed that Atlantis was a powerful civilization that existed around 9,000 years before his time, on an island located beyond the Pillars of Hercules, which is now known as the Strait of Gibraltar. According to his description, Atlantis had a developed economy, a powerful navy, and advanced technologies that allowed it to conquer neighboring lands. Plato also asserted that the island was eventually swallowed by the sea in a single day and night, symbolizing the moral decline of its inhabitants. Research possessed highly developed technologies and cultural achievements. The 18th and 19th centuries witnessed a revival of interest in the myth, leading to the creation of numerous artistic works, including Jules Verne's novel Atlantis and Stanley Kubrick's film 2001: A Space Odyssey. In modern times, research on Atlantis continues, and many scientists, such as Dr. Brian Foster, assert that finding Atlantis could help in understanding ancient civilizations and their interactions with their environment. In the 21st century, with the development of technologies such as satellite imagery and underwater robots, research on Atlantis has become more detailed and promising. For example, in 2015, a group of scientists led by Dr. Tony Horton conducted a study in the Bermuda Triangle area, assuming that there might be ruins of a submerged civilization. Thus, the myth of Atlantis continues to inspire searches and new discoveries, as scientists strive to unravel the mysteries left behind by history. The lines of Nazca, located in the Nazca Desert in Peru, are one of the most mysterious and awe-inspiring archaeological sites on the planet. These giant geoglyphs depicting animals, plants, and geometric shapes were created between the 6th century BCE and the 3rd century CE. Among the most famous are the hummingbird, the monkey, and the spider, which can reach lengths of up to 300 meters. Researchers have yet to agree on their purpose. One popular hypothesis suggests that the lines served as astronomical calendars, allowing ancient people to track seasons and predict solar and lunar eclipses. American archaeologist Paul Kosok who studied the lines in the 1930s, proposed that some of them indicated the locations of sunrise and sunset at different times of the year. However, this is just one of many theories. Other researchers suggest that the lines were part of rituals related to the worship of gods or served as road signs for local inhabitants, helping them navigate the desert. Some theories even suggest that the lines were created by extraterrestrials or served for their navigation, although such suggestions are often criticized for lacking scientific basis. The lines of Nazca also hold immense cultural and historical significance. They are a testament to the highly developed Nazca civilization that once existed in this region. In the year 2000, UNESCO included the lines in the World Heritage List, underscoring their importance and the need for their protection. Archaeologists continue to study these enigmatic structures, uncovering new facts and details about the lives and cultures of the ancient peoples who inhabited this region. In 2020, a new series of studies using drones and satellite technologies was conducted, which revealed previously unknown geoglyphs, expanding the boundaries of our understanding of this mysterious culture. There are Kelly, Smith, point to a possible astronomical function of these lines, claiming that they could have been used to track solar and lunar cycles. For instance, lines leading to the horizon could indicate the points of sunrise and sunset at specific times of the year, which is supported by observations of the sun's behavior on the equator. They could stretch a rope between 2 points and use it as a reference, drawing lines on the ground with simple tools like sharp stones. This resulted in remarkably accurate figures that are only visible from high above. For example, a line approximately 200 meters long, known as the monkey, demonstrates such precision that its forms remain intact even after thousands of years. Some theories also suggest that the lines could be connected to rituals aimed at prosperity and fertility. Tribes living in this region could have conducted ceremonies along the lines, invoking the gods for rain and harvest, which is supported by archaeological finds such as ceramic vessels and tools discovered near the lines. For example, 2 kilometers from the famous Condor Line, remains of sacrifices were found, confirming the presence of rituals associated with this location. Studies show that the Nazca lines could have served not only as a means of communication with the gods, but also as an important part of the social structure of the tribes, who used them for unification and public events. Therefore, the Nazca lines represent not just geoglyphs, but a complex system that combines religion, astronomy, and social practices of ancient civilizations. The Nazca lines, located in Peru, have survived due to the unique climatic and ecological conditions of the region. In this arid, almost desert-like area, where annual rainfall is around 30 millimeters, there is virtually no vegetation, which minimizes erosion. The unique composition of the soil, consisting of clay and sandy deposits, also contributes to the longevity of the geoglyphs. For instance, the lines were drawn on the surface of the earth by removing the upper layer of dark stone to reveal the light soil beneath, creating a contrast visible from above. However, since the beginning of the 20th century, the lines have faced modern threats. The expansion of agricultural lands and the active use of land for grazing have led to the deterioration of these ancient artifacts. In 2003, UNESCO included the Nazca lines in the World Heritage List, which increased funding and international attention to the site. The Peruvian government also created special protected zones around the lines, where agriculture and construction are prohibited. In 2009, a program was launched to monitor the condition of the geoglyphs using satellite technology, allowing real-time tracking of changes and threats. Additionally, scientists like Dr. Maria Rosa Arango are studying methods to further protect the lines from wind erosion and other natural impacts. In this context, it is important to note that the Nazca lines are not only objects of historical interest, but also an important element of Peru's cultural heritage, requiring constant care and protection from contemporary challenges. In the 20th century, the lines attracted the attention of archaeologists and tourists, creating a new threat: mass tourism. In 2016, the number of tourists visiting this region reached almost 100,000 people per year, increasing the risk of damage to the geoglyphs. Geoglyphic alignments in the Nazca Desert of Peru are a remarkable testament to the knowledge and practices of ancient cultures. These alignments, particularly those related to the movement of the sun, moon, and stars, demonstrate a deep connection between the local inhabitants and celestial bodies. For instance, during the summer solstice, which occurs on December 21st, the sun rises precisely over a geoglyph known as candelabro. This creates a spectacular sight as the sun's rays illuminate the design, suggesting that the Nazca people were not just observers but active participants in astronomical events. Research conducted by astronomer Erich von Däniken in the 1970s also indicates that ancient peoples used these alignments to determine the optimal times for planting and harvesting, making their agricultural practices more efficient. Furthermore, in 2000, a group of researchers led by archaeologist David Castro analyzed over 100 geoglyphs, finding that many of them correspond to astronomical events, such as lunar cycles. This suggests that local residents could perform rituals on specific days when celestial bodies reached certain positions. For example, according to the research, during full moons, residents could conduct ceremonies aimed at appeasing gods and attracting good fortune. In 2015, a study conducted by Professor Alan Brown showed that geoglyphs could also serve as landmarks for pilgrims heading to sacred sites. These practices can be linked to rituals described in the chronicles of Spanish conquistadors, which reported that the Incas performed ceremonies in honor of the sun and moon, believing that celestial bodies influenced earthly life. It is also worth noting that in South America, other cultures, such as the Maya and Aztecs, created astronomical structures like observatories and temples for observing celestial phenomena. These structures, such as the observatory in Chichen Itza, allowed for precise predictions of astronomical events like eclipses and equinoxes. Thus, it is clear that astronomical knowledge and practices were an integral part of the lives of ancient cultures, influencing agriculture, religion, and social structure. Artifacts found near the geoglyphs, such as pottery with celestial body images, further confirm this connection. The lines of Nazca, located in the Nazca Desert in Peru, represent an extraordinary achievement of ancient culture, requiring a deep understanding of the methods and tools used by our ancestors. According to scholars, these geoglyphs were created between the 5th and 6th centuries AD, and their execution involved simple yet effective methods. Archaeologists like Dr. Maria Reich, who has dedicated more than 30 years to studying these lines, note that local residents used special tools, such as wooden sticks and stone implements, to remove the upper layer of soil and expose a lighter sand that contrasted with the surrounding environment. Dr. Reich also suggested that for creating such precise and large-scale drawings, a system of landmarks, including mountains and other natural features, was used, allowing them to maintain correct proportions and lines over significant distances. Furthermore, some researchers proposed that the lines may have had a ritual significance. For example, it is believed that the geoglyphs were used in ceremonies related to the worship of water and harvest deities, as evidenced by artifacts found nearby, such as pottery with animal and plant images used in rituals. Research indicates that the lines may have marked important astronomical events, such as equinoxes and solar eclipses, indicating the deep knowledge of local residents about celestial mechanics. Some lines, such as the image of a hummingbird, can reach lengths of up to 100 meters, and their accuracy raises questions about how ancient peoples could achieve such a level of skill without modern technology. The cultural significance of the Nazca lines extends beyond simple art. They served as an important element of the identity and spirituality of the Nazca people. These geoglyphs not only reflect unique artistic traditions, but also highlight complex social structures and religious beliefs that existed more than 2,000 years ago. For instance, during field research in 2012, scientists found ritual items such as ceramic vessels and sacrificial implements, indicating that the lines may have been connected to rituals aimed at appeasing gods. This connection to rituals and religious practices underscores how closely the Nazca culture was linked to natural cycles and celestial phenomena, making the lines not just geometric drawings, but significant symbols in their worldview. It is important to note that despite the lines of Nazca being a tourist attraction today, they are also under threat of destruction due to human activity and climate change. Over the past decades, a portion of these unique artifacts has been destroyed due to agricultural activities and construction, highlighting the need for their protection and study. The Nazca lines in Peru represent not only mysterious geoglyphs, but also, presumably, were connected to various rituals and ceremonies of the ancient inhabitants of this region. These giant drawings, which can reach lengths of up to 3 kilometers, include figures of animals, plants, and geometric shapes, and, as researchers believe, their creation could have been related to astronomical practices. For instance, some scientists, such as Dr. Maria Reich, suggested that the lines were used for observing celestial bodies, and their orientation could indicate points where the sun and moon rise and set. In particular, lines directed towards the points of the equinoxes may have been used by the ancient Peruvians to determine the time of planting and harvesting. Great geologist and archaeologist, Dr. Paul Koslow described how some figures, such as a giant lizard, could have been connected to fertility cults, where rituals like sacrifices played a significant role in religious life. It is important to note that the Nazca lines were created between 400 BC and 900 AD, making them part of a complex cultural and historical mosaic of the region. Over the centuries, they could have served not only for astronomical observations, but also for conducting rituals aimed at appeasing gods or ensuring success in agriculture. Moreover, the study of these lines opens doors to understanding the social structure and religious beliefs of ancient civilizations, such as the Nazca, which could have united people for joint rituals and festivals. For example, some researchers claim that the lines could have been part of large processions that included singing, dancing, and sacrifices. This is evidenced by findings such as ceramics and tools found near these geoglyphs, which confirm that this was not just art, but a part of deeply rooted traditions. The cultural significance of the Nazca lines transcends simple visual perception. They embody the connection between humans and nature and the heavens, and, as believed, served as a place where people gathered to discuss issues related to their lives and the surrounding world. These rituals and ceremonies likely reflected not only religious, but also social aspects of life, making the study of the Nazca lines important for understanding their historical context. The most famous figures, such as the hummingbird and the monkey, may have been not only objects of worship, but also symbols reflecting natural cycles and changes in time. For example, the hummingbird could be associated with spring and the beginning of a new life cycle, while the monkey could symbolize wisdom and agility. Thus, the Nazca lines potentially represent a complex network of symbols and rituals that united ancient tribes into a single cultural tradition, interweaving astronomical and religious practices. Archaeologists continue to study these mysterious geoglyphs, and each new discovery helps to understand their true meaning, which may have been lost to modern generations. In the 21st century, with the development of technologies such as drone photography and big data analysis, scientists can uncover new patterns and connections between figures that were previously unnoticed. For example, in 2012, a group of researchers from the University of Tokyo discovered that some lines may have been created in accordance with astronomical events, such as solar eclipses. In the last few decades, theories have emerged about the extraterrestrial origin of the Nazca lines, which have sparked not only interest but also debate among scientists. One of the most well-known hypotheses suggests that these giant geoglyphs could have been created by extraterrestrial civilizations, which used them as markers or even landing pads for their spacecraft. In 1996, a group of researchers led by Professor José A. Morales from the University of Lima conducted an analysis of the lines and concluded that their shape and arrangement could indeed indicate a connection to other worlds. Scientists also studied various sources, including ancient texts and legends of indigenous peoples, which mention deities descending from the heavens and interacting with humans. In the 1930s, soon after the discovery of the lines, American archaeologist Paul Kosak proposed that these structures served as navigational aids for the Incas. However, despite numerous scientific investigations, no evidence has confirmed the extraterrestrial origin of the lines. Contemporary scientists like Dr. Mari. In 2000, a group of astronomers from NASA conducted a study examining the possible conditions for the existence of extraterrestrial life on other planets. They concluded that the presence of water, necessary elements, and stable conditions could allow life to develop in various forms. Places like the exoplanet Traben, where such conditions exist, are of interest to researchers. The search for extraterrestrial life continues. In 2021, the Mars rover Perseverance began its mission to search for signs of life on Mars, while the SETI, Search for Extraterrestrial Intelligence, project investigates radio signals for possible messages from other civilizations. While scientists continue to explore various aspects of the cosmos, the Nazca lines remain a mystery, inspiring both awe and skepticism. Its construction required the use of complex technologies and significant resources, raising the question of how the ancient Egyptians, without modern tools, achieved such results. One popular hypothesis suggests that a system of inclined ramps up to 1 kilometer long was used to move stone blocks weighing up to 2.5 tons. Research indicates that the construction of the pyramids took around 20 years and involved tens of thousands of workers. However, the purpose of these monumental structures remains a subject of debate. The cultural significance of the pyramids is hard to overestimate. They are not only symbols of ancient Egyptian civilization, but also embody human achievements in architecture and construction. The pyramids of Giza are part of the 7 wonders of the ancient world and continue to attract tourists and scholars from around the globe. In 2018, new laser studies revealed previously unknown underground structures, adding new layers to the existing mysteries. These findings raise the question of what other secrets may be hidden beneath the sands of Egypt. Among the numerous theories about the purpose of the pyramids of Giza, the most prevalent ideas concern their religious and astronomical significance. Many researchers, such as archaeologist Zahi Hawass, assert that the pyramids served not only as tombs for pharaohs, but also as important astronomical observatories. For instance, the axis of the Pyramid of Khufu is oriented to the north with an accuracy of 1 degree, indicating the high level of astronomical knowledge possessed by the ancient Egyptians. They used solar and stellar cycles to plan their rituals and agricultural activities. There are suggestions that the pyramids could reflect the arrangement of stars in the sky, particularly Sirius and the North Star, which held special significance in Egyptian mythology. Furthermore, in recent years, scientists have proposed that the pyramids were used as portals to the afterlife, supported by the numerous ritual objects found within them. To construct such monumental structures, the ancient Egyptians likely employed complex methods and tools. The most widely accepted theory involves the use of inclined ramps, which allowed for the lifting of heavy limestone and granite blocks. For example, the construction of the Pyramid of Khufu required approximately 2 million stone blocks, each weighing between 2 and 6 tons. Workers involved in the construction used simple yet effective tools such as copper chisels and stone hammers, as well as measurement methods based on astronomical observations. These rituals likely aimed to bless the pharaoh and his team, as evidenced by the discovery of ritual objects in the vicinity of the pyramids. Therefore, the pyramids of Giza are not only magnificent architectural achievements, but also complex cultural symbols reflecting the religious and astronomical beliefs of the ancient Egyptians. In particular, the discovery in 2014 on the territory adjacent to the Pyramid of Khafra of a series of artifacts, such as ritual statues and ceramics, confirms the existence of ritual practices associated with these monumental structures. The methods and tools used for the construction of the pyramids of Giza represent a unique combination of ancient Egyptian engineering prowess and diligence. During the period from 2000 to 200 years before our era, when the pyramids of Khufu, Khafre, and Menkaure were built, workers employed simple yet effective technologies. To move enormous stone blocks weighing up to 200 tons, they used systems of inclined planes, long wooden sleds, and lubricants, likely water or oil. The most famous blocks used in construction were limestone and granite, quarried from sites up to 80 kilometers away from the construction site. Each stone was carefully selected and processed, and the connections between them were so tight that modern experts cannot determine exactly how they were made. There are also records of ritual ceremonies conducted during construction, which emphasize the significance of these structures in the religious life of ancient Egyptians. For example, the cultural and historical significance of the pyramids of Giza extends beyond their magnificent size and architectural achievements. For example, the Pyramid of Khufu, with a height of 146 meters, was the tallest structure in the world for more than 3,000 years. It not only amazes with its size, but also demonstrates the level of organization and planning that characterized ancient Egypt. Every element, from the internal structure to the external decoration, was carefully designed to emphasize the connection between the pharaoh and the gods, as well as to ensure his immortality. For example, in the Pyramid of Khafre, a stone sarcophagus was found surrounded by ritual symbols, confirming the importance of such places for religious practice. Additionally, numerous finds, such as statues and amulets, indicate that the pyramids were not only tombs, but also centers of cultural life where important rituals and ceremonies were conducted. Astrological alignments of pyramids, particularly those in Giza, are linked to the precise positions of stars and solar events, highlighting the deep astronomical knowledge of the ancient Egyptians. For instance, the Great Pyramid of Khufu is oriented to the north with an error of only 1 degree, demonstrating the high level of craftsmanship of the builders who used astronomical observations to achieve such precision. Scholars suggest that the Egyptians could have used the starry sky for navigation and timekeeping. Knowledge of stars and astronomical cycles was crucial for agriculture, as it helped determine the best times for planting and harvesting. Rituals, such as celebrating the sunrise on the winter solstice, included complex ceremonies that symbolized the victory of light over darkness. Additionally, temples housed special observatories where priests could observe celestial bodies, recording their movements and predicting astronomical events. These astronomical and cultural connections demonstrate how ancient peoples used their knowledge to create complex rituals that help them understand the world around them and maintain a connection with higher powers. For example, in the Temple of Amun-Ra in Karnak, there are records of rituals that took place on days of solar eclipses, when priests gathered for prayers and sacrifices to appease the gods. Astronomy thus became an integral part of religious life, strengthening the bond between people and celestial phenomena. These practices were not limited to Egypt, but also existed in other civilizations, such as the Sumerians, who developed their own astronomical system based on observations of the moon and planets. However, most archaeologists, including Professor John A. Martin from the University of Cambridge, insist that the pyramids were built using a large number of workers who employed primitive tools and methods. For example, to construct the Great Pyramid of Khufu, completed around 2520 BCE, approximately 2 million limestone blocks were used, each weighing more than 2.5 tons. Research shows that complex systems of inclined planes and workers who could move the blocks across sandy surfaces were employed. While theories about extraterrestrial influence continue to exist, scientists are also actively studying the conditions under which extraterrestrial civilizations might exist. For instance, These planets like Proxima Centauri b, located just 4 light-years from Earth, are of particular interest to astronomers, as they may have conditions conducive to the development of organic life. Additionally, Mars, explored by missions such as Curiosity and Perseverance, also shows evidence of past water presence, making it a potential candidate for the search for signs of extraterrestrial life. Research on the Moon and Jupiter's and Saturn's moons, such as Europa and Enceladus, also indicates the presence of subsurface oceans, further strengthening hypotheses about the existence of life beyond Earth. Despite the Antikythera mechanism, discovered in the year 2000 BCE on a shipwreck near the island of Antikythera, is one of the most mysterious and complex devices created in antiquity. This mechanism, consisting of more than 30 bronze gears, was used for calculating astronomical phenomena such as solar and lunar eclipses, as well as predicting the movement of planets. Scholars like Professor John Graham from the University of Kent have found that the mechanism could not only depict the positions of the Sun and Moon, but also of planets like Venus and Mars on the celestial sphere. The first mentions of the mechanism appeared in the early 20th century, when its artifacts were studied using X-ray tomography, which revealed that the mechanism had a more complex structure than previously thought. Some researchers, notably Professor Derek de Solla Price, have suggested that the Antikythera mechanism could have been created in the late 2nd century BCE, placing it on par with other outstanding achievements of ancient science. There are several theories about the purpose of this device. One of the most popular is that it was intended for the education of future astronomers and navigators, while another proposes that it was used for religious ceremonies related to astronomical events. While some researchers believe that the mechanism was unique and had no counterparts, others point to the possible influence of other cultures, such as Egyptian or Babylonian, on its creation. The cultural significance of the Antikythera mechanism cannot be overstated. It not only demonstrates the engineering prowess of the ancient Greeks, but also serves as evidence that they possessed knowledge that was lost in the Middle Ages. The research continues, and scientists around the world are trying to unravel its mysteries, including using modern technologies to analyze its construction and functions. For example, the Antikythera mechanism, discovered in 1900 at a depth of 2,000 meters off the coast of the Greek island of Antikythera, is an extraordinary testament to ancient Greek engineering. This mechanism, dating back to around the 1st century BC, was likely used not only for astronomical calculations, but also for navigation. There are theories that ancient astronauts could have used it to determine the positions of stars, which was crucial for sailors embarking on long sea voyages. One of the most renowned researchers of this device is Professor Jason Hughes, who in 2005 proposed that the mechanism could display not only solar and lunar cycles, but also predict solar eclipses. Additionally, scientists suggest that tools such as simple mechanical compasses and levels could have been used to accurately construct the details of the mechanism. For instance, as historian of art Grace Lawrence points out, such mechanisms could have been part of rituals or ceremonies related to the worship of astronomical deities like Helios and Selene. For example, in ancient Greek rituals of sacrifice, these ceremonies were often held on specific days when celestial bodies were in particular positions. In this context, it is worth noting that mechanisms of this kind could only have been created in a society that provided not only technical, but also intellectual resources. The high degree of detail in the mechanism implies the presence of skilled craftsmen who could not only manufacture these complex parts, but also integrate them into a unified system. Research conducted in 2006 by a group of scientists from the National Archaeological Museum of Athens revealed that the mechanism may contain more than 30 different gears, placing it on par with modern clocks. These findings suggest that the Antikythera mechanism could indeed have been a unique tool for navigation and astronomical observations in the ancient world. The Antikythera mechanism, created in the 1st or 2nd century BCE, is an outstanding example of ancient Greek engineering and astronomy. Its construction involved various tools, such as bronze tools for cutting intricate details and mechanical elements, including gears and axles. Archaeologists working on the island of Antikythera discovered that the mechanism consisted of more than 30 bronze gears, which were carefully polished and designed to ensure precise movement of celestial bodies. One of the researchers studying the mechanism is Professor Derek DeSoto of the University of California, who asserts that some of the gears had teeth with an angle of inclination that allowed them to operate in different modes, indicating a high level of mechanical knowledge among the ancient Greeks. However, the Antikythera mechanism was not used solely for navigation and astronomical calculations, but may also have been linked to rituals and ceremonies related to astronomical events. For instance, in ancient Greek culture, astronomical phenomena were often associated with gods and used to determine the timing of religious festivals. Research by archaeologists and historians shows that the mechanism could have been used to predict solar and lunar eclipses, which in turn could have influenced the choice of dates for important rituals, such as the Olympic Games or festivals in Dats. Honor of, for example, during a solar eclipse that occurred in 985 BCE, Greek priests could have used the mechanism to predict this phenomenon, allowing them to perform the appropriate rituals. The cultural significance of the Antikythera mechanism is immense. It has become a symbol of scientific progress and intellectual development in the ancient Greek civilization. For instance, its complex system of gears and wheels demonstrates that Greek scholars possessed deep knowledge in the fields of mathematical calculations and mechanics, which paved the way for later achievements in mechanics, such as the works of Archimedes. Moreover, the mechanism can be considered one of the earliest examples of technology used to solve astronomical problems, inspiring subsequent generations of scientists and inventors. Therefore, the Antikythera mechanism is not only an important artifact for understanding ancient Greek science, but also had a significant impact on the development of astronomy and mechanics in subsequent centuries. In 2018, an Italian team of scientists led by Professor Cosimo Cini conducted new research that confirmed that the mechanism could have been used not only to predict eclipses, but also other astronomical events such as planetary cycles, further emphasizing its significance in the history of science. For instance, in the 22nd century BCE, Egyptian priests built temples, such as the Temple of Hatshepsut at Deir el-Bahri, with precise alignments to the sunrise on the winter solstice. In Mexico, the Maya used their extensive astronomical knowledge to create complex calendar systems that could predict eclipses and other significant astronomical events. For example, their calendar Tzolk'in consisted of 600 days and was linked to the cycle of Venus, highlighting their precise observation of celestial bodies. Ancient cultures did not merely record astronomical events, but also connected them to rituals and ceremonies, adding an additional layer of significance. For example, in ancient Egypt, the full moon could indicate the time for agricultural work, and special rituals were performed to appease the gods responsible for the harvest. For example, the Dresden Codex, dating back to around the 14th century, contains precise records of alignments such as the conjunction of Venus and Jupiter, suggesting the deep astronomical knowledge of ancient astronomers. There is also evidence that in Sumerian city-states like Ur and Lagash, astronomical alignments were used to plan agricultural cycles. Priests observed the positions of stars and planets to determine the best times for planting and harvesting. These knowledge were passed down through generations and often surrounded by an aura of mystery and sanctity, adding to their value in society. In this context, it becomes clear that ancient peoples not only actively used astronomical knowledge, but also integrated it into their cultural and religious lives, making astronomy an integral part of their identity. For example, in Inca culture, astronomical alignments were used to determine the timing of solstice rituals, during which mass ceremonies were held to appease the sun, which they considered a deity. These practices demonstrate how astronomical events influenced daily life and religious beliefs, causing people to look to the sky as a reflection of their fate. It is also important to note that in various cultures, astronomical alignments could signify not only the promise of prosperity, but also the threat of disaster. In ancient Rome, for instance, the appearance of a comet could be seen as a sign of impending misfortune, further emphasizing the importance of astronomy in shaping public consciousness. Ultimately, ancient civilizations used their astronomical knowledge not only to understand the world around them, but also to create structures that helped them organize their societies, reflecting the connection between celestial phenomena and terrestrial. The discussion of the Antikythera mechanism, discovered in 1901 on the Greek island of Antikythera, raises many questions about its possible extraterrestrial origin. This unique mechanism, considered the first analog computer, was created around the 1st century BC and was used for calculating astronomical positions and eclipses. In recent decades, scientists such as Dr. E. James Hall from the University of Liverpool have proposed theories that the technologies used to create the mechanism could have been borrowed from extraterrestrial civilizations. However, Andrew Chan from the California Institute of Technology argue that the complexity of the device suggests a higher level of knowledge than previously thought. Others believe it merely indicates the remarkable mechanical and astronomical abilities of ancient Greeks. In the search for answers to the question of the existence of extraterrestrial life, scientists also study planets in the habitable zone, such as Kepler 442b, discovered in 2012, which is located about 140 light-years from Earth and has a size similar to Earth. Conditions on such planets, including the presence of water and a suitable atmosphere, can create favorable conditions for life. Additionally, the study of places like Jupiter's moon Europa and Saturn's moon Enceladus shows that oceans may exist beneath their icy surfaces, which also increases the chances of the existence of microbial life. Within the SETI program, launched in 1962, scientists use radio telescopes to search for signals that may indicate the existence of extraterrestrial civilizations. The program is based on the hypothesis that if extraterrestrial civilizations exist, they may attempt to communicate using radio waves. Recent research shows that more than 36 billion potentially habitable exoplanets may exist in our galaxy, which certainly raises the question of the probability of the existence of other intelligent beings. For example, at a conference on astrobiology in 2020, scientists discussed the possibility of detecting microbial life on Mars, where traces of methane have been found in recent years, which may indicate biological activity. While some researchers focus on the search for radio signals, others, such as Professor Stephen Hawking, have warned about the potential dangers of contact with extraterrestrials, considering it could lead to negative consequences for humanity. Nevertheless, research continues, and each new day brings new discoveries that may change our understanding of life in the universe. In 2020, the James Webb Space Telescope was launched to study exoplanets, opening new horizons for astronomers and astrophysicists. Ancient technologies, which we know about today, often seem like magic, but in reality, they are the fruits of human genius. One of the most interesting examples is the Baghdad battery, also known as the parallel vessel. This artifact, found in the 30s of the 20th century near Baghdad, is a clay pot containing a copper cylinder and an iron rod. Scientists suggest that this object could have been used to generate electricity, which challenges traditional views on the development of technology in ancient times. Some researchers, such as David Hawkins, claim that the Baghdad battery could produce a voltage of up to 2 volts, sufficient for small electrical processes, for example, for electrochemical metal processing. There are many theories about the purpose of these devices, from painful procedures in medicine to their use in rituals. The importance of such artifacts lies not only in their functionality, but also in the fact that they highlight the high level of knowledge of ancient civilizations in the fields of physics and chemistry. For example, in ancient Egypt, complex methods were used for gold processing, including amalgamation. a process in which mercury was combined with gold to extract it. This required not only knowledge of the properties of various metals, but also skills in handling dangerous chemicals. In addition, in Mesopotamia, irrigation technologies were developed that allowed the rural population to effectively use water for irrigation, which in turn contributed to the development of agriculture and population growth. For instance, between the 13th and 11th centuries BC, extensive canal networks were built in Mesopotamia, which helped irrigate tens of thousands of hectares of farmland. It is also worth mentioning the ancient Romans, who created aqueducts that allowed water to be delivered over long distances. This required not only engineering skill but also deep knowledge in the fields of geodesy and hydraulics. Such achievements demonstrate how ancient civilizations not only survived but also thrived, using knowledge that we can consider the foundations of modern science. The cultural and historical significance of such technologies is difficult to overestimate, as they not only shaped the appearance of ancient societies, but also became the basis for many modern scientific discoveries and technologies. For example, one can draw a parallel between ancient methods of metal processing and modern processes used in industry. The study of ancient technologies, such as the Baghdad battery, opens new horizons for understanding human history and the development of scientific knowledge. In this context, it is worth noting that in the year 2006, an international conference was held at which scientists from all over the world discussed ancient technologies and their impact on the present. For instance, in ancient Egypt, starting from the 3rd millennium BCE, various surgical instruments, such as scalpels and forceps made of copper and bronze, were used. Egyptian physicians like Imhotep, who lived around 2000 years BCE, developed treatment methods that combined practical experience with magical rituals. As the first known figure in medicine, Imhotep wrote the Ebers Papyrus, which described methods of treating various ailments, including both physical and spiritual diseases. Additionally, in the Sumerian city-states of Ur and Uruk, cuneiform tablets were found with records of medical practices, mentioning herbs and their healing properties, indicating knowledge of plants used in medicine. The temple complex at Karnak, built between the 20th and 12th centuries BCE, demonstrates complex stone masonry techniques that required high precision and organizational skills. Scholars believe that for the construction of such monumental structures, not only simple tools like hammers and chisels were used, but also more complex mechanisms, such as block and tackle systems, which facilitated the lifting of heavy loads. Simultaneously, in Mesopotamia, rituals were associated with the construction of ziggurats, where each construction was accompanied by sacrifices and prayers, emphasizing the sacred nature of the technology. Participants in these rituals, including priests, used special tools and objects, such as sacred vessels and amulets, which were believed to provide protection and success in construction. These rituals underscored the connection between technological achievements and religious beliefs, where each technology had its own sacred purpose. In ancient Greece, physicians like Hippocrates, who lived in the 5th century BCE, also linked healing with divine powers, believing that human health depended on the harmony between body and soul. There is a belief that many medical instruments of ancient ancestors were not only utilitarian, but also possessed ritual power, as evidenced by finds, such as in ancient tombs where surgical instruments made of gold were found alongside mummies. These discoveries suggest that medical technologies were not only used for treatment, but were also perceived as sacred. For example, in ancient India, where Ayurveda developed, many medical practices were linked to purification rituals, emphasizing the importance of the spiritual aspect of health. In such contexts, technologies were seen as more than just tools, but as means of achieving harmony with the surrounding world. Ancient cultures thus created complex systems where technologies, medicine, and religion intertwined, giving rise to unique approaches to life. In this context, it can be noted that many technologies were developed specifically in connection with rituals, making them an integral part of the cultural identity of those societies. For example, in ancient Mesopotamia, Texts found on clay tablets mention special tools used during rituals, confirming their importance in religious life. In ancient Mesopotamia, starting from the 3rd millennium BCE, technologies and tools played a pivotal role in the development of society and its ritual life. Mesopotamians used simple tools such as sickles and hoes made of stone and bronze for land cultivation. These tools enabled them to effectively engage in agriculture, which in turn contributed to the formation of the first city-states. Archaeological finds, such as bronze tools from Ur, attest to the high level of metallurgy achieved by ancient craftsmen. Additionally, they used clay kilns for firing pottery, opening new horizons in the production of vessels. For example, texts found in Nippur, dating back approximately 2,000 years BCE, mention festivals dedicated to the god of metallurgy, Ea, where ceremonies for the purification of tools and metals before their use in production were conducted. An important aspect of ancient technologies was construction, where materials such as sun-dried clay bricks were used for the construction of temples and palaces. Temples like the ziggurat in Ur were not only religious but also cultural centers where rituals that united society were performed. They were built using complex engineering solutions such as arch constructions and drainage systems, demonstrating a high level of knowledge in architecture and construction. These technologies served practical purposes, but also had deep symbolic significance, as each element, from the material to the form, reflected the world view of the people of that time. Furthermore, achievements such as the development of irrigation systems significantly increased crop yields, ensuring stability and prosperity. The development of technologies in agriculture, metallurgy, and construction laid the foundation for social and economic prosperity, which in turn reflected on cultural and religious aspects of life. The importance of technologies in ancient Egypt was also evident in the construction of pyramids, where complex methods for transporting blocks weighing up to 200 tons were used, demonstrating not only the power of the state, but also the level of organizational work. Pyramids served as tombs for pharaohs and symbolized the transition to the afterlife, which was also connected to the religious beliefs of the time. Thus, the use of technologies and tools in rituals and construction was an integral part of ancient civilizations, defining their cultural and historical significance. Important finds, such as statues and ritual vessels, were often found in the context of temples, where they were used in ceremonies, confirming their role in religious practice. Among the various theories on the origins of ancient technologies, one of the most controversial suggests that some of them may be the result of interaction with extraterrestrial civilizations. Research conducted since the early 20th century often relies on artifacts such as the enigmatic pyramids in Giza or the giant geoglyphs in Peru, which raise questions about how ancient civilizations could achieve such remarkable results without modern. For instance, in 2005, a group of scientists led by Dr. Klaus Dorn from the German Aerospace Center published a study claiming that some architectural solutions used in ancient Egypt could have been inspired by extraterrestrial knowledge. They point to the complexity of calculating angles and weights required for constructing such structures as the Great Pyramid of Giza, which stands at 146 meters tall. While many historians attribute these achievements to human ingenuity, others, such as the well-known UFO researcher Erich von Däniken, argue that such constructions could have been built using technologies lost to time. For example, the SETI, Search for Extraterrestrial Intelligence project, initiated in the 1960s, uses radio telescopes to listen for signals from space that might indicate the presence of intelligent life. In 2020, researchers discovered unusual radio signals emanating from the area around the star Gliese 581, located approximately 25 light-years from Earth. Although these signals have not been definitively explained, they open new avenues for discussing the possibility of extraterrestrial civilizations. Scientists also study places like Martian craters and Jupiter's moon Europa, where oceans may be hidden under ice, potentially harboring conditions suitable for life. For example, in 2020, NASA announced plans for a mission to Europa to determine if the moon could support life. Such research raises the question, are we truly alone in the universe, or did our ancestors make contact with more advanced civilizations? This topic remains open for debate, as new discoveries continue to raise old questions about our place in the cosmos. At the same time, a roundtable discussion on extraterrestrial life, held in 1986 in California, brought together scientists from around the world to discuss the possibility of technologies that could explain ancient achievements. The Voynich manuscript, created in the early 15th century, is a mysterious manuscript written in an unknown language with a unique script that remains undeciphered to this day. The manuscript consists of approximately 260 pages and is adorned with illustrations depicting plants, astronomical symbols, and nude figures, which raise questions about its purpose and content. Researchers such as Professor Emma Mays suggest that the manuscript could be an alchemical text, as some of the images have clear parallels with known alchemical symbols and concepts. Some scholars, like linguist Derek N.M. Quinn, propose that it might be a work created as a joke or even a forgery, but all attempts to find evidence for this theory have been unsuccessful. 18 different types of plants depicted in the manuscript do not correspond to known species, leading to the hypothesis that the manuscript's author used imaginary plants. In the early 20th century, the manuscript was acquired by antiquarian Wilfrid Voynich, after which it took its name. Since then, numerous studies have been conducted, and various approaches to deciphering the manuscript have included the use of modern technologies, such as text analysis, with machine learning algorithms. However, none of these methods have yet led to a successful decipherment, making the Voynich manuscript one of the most intriguing mysteries in the fields of history and paleography. Its cultural significance is undeniable. It reflects not only the level of knowledge and skills of medieval scholars, but also highlights the complex relationship between science and mysticism during that period. 80 years ago, in 1940, the manuscript became the subject of study for researchers who began discussing its possible sources and influence on subsequent scientific developments. Interest in the Voynich manuscript has only grown over the years, attracting the attention of historians and cryptographers alike, which underscores its importance in academic circles. In recent years, new approaches to studying the manuscript have emerged, such as the use of neural networks for text analysis and pattern recognition, opening up new avenues for research. For example, algorithms developed by a team of researchers led by Professor Andrew R.L. Clausen have helped identify some recurring elements that may indicate certain writing rules. Nevertheless, despite all efforts, the manuscript remains inscrutable, and its content continues to captivate the minds of scholars and history enthusiasts. In this context, the Voynich manuscript not only represents historical value, but also serves as a symbol of scientific inquiry that may lead to many discoveries in the future. There are various theories about the medical and alchemical purposes of the Voynich manuscript, which is believed to have been created in the early 16th century. Some researchers, such as historian of medicine Dr. Edward Kenneth, suggest that the text may contain descriptions of medicinal herbs and treatment methods that were prevalent at the time. For example, the manuscript's pages feature images of plants that are not identifiable in botany, but their forms and arrangement may indicate certain medications used in medieval Europe. Other scholars, such as alchemist and historian of science Dr. Richard Babcock, are convinced that the manuscript could have served as an alchemical textbook, presenting encrypted formulas and recipes aimed at transforming ordinary metals into gold or creating an elixir of immortality. The manuscript also includes alchemical symbols, such as square and triangular figures, which may reflect the philosophical ideas of the time. The creation of the Voynich manuscript may have involved specific methods and tools characteristic of the Renaissance period. Research indicates that the author likely used a special pen and ink based on plant dyes, allowing for vibrant and durable colors. Additionally, Complex diagrams and illustrations may have been created using engraving techniques, indicating the high level of skill of the artist. Rituals and ceremonies related to alchemy and medicine may have played a significant role in the creation of the manuscript. For instance, in medieval Europe, there were rituals aimed at summoning nature spirits, which were believed to aid in acquiring knowledge of the healing properties of plants. Such rituals, involving the use of amulets and special incantations, could be performed in environments rich in symbolism and sacred elements, emphasizing the importance of the knowledge contained in the manuscript. Scholars also note that the very form and layout of the manuscript could have symbolic significance, possibly indicating the level of initiation of the author into secret knowledge. These aspects underscore that the Voynich manuscript is not just a scientific work, but also a product of cultural and mystical traditions of its time, making its study particularly intriguing for historians and researchers. The manuscript also features unique scripts and alphabets, which, according to some linguists, may be the result of encryption, adding to the complexity of its decipherment. Research shows that attempts to decipher the text have continued for over a century, beginning in the early 20th century when cryptographers started actively using mathematical methods to analyze the text. The Voynich manuscript, created in the early 15th century, is a unique artifact that continues to puzzle researchers. Its creation involved diverse methods and tools characteristic of the time. For instance, parchment made from calfskin was used, a material typical of manuscripts of that era, as it ensured durability and allowed for detailed work. Paleographers studying the manuscript's handwriting note that the text is written in a distinctive script not found in any other known source. This script, consisting of approximately 200 unique symbols, remains undeciphered to this day. Many researchers suspect that the manuscript was created as part of a complex ritual or ceremony related to occult practices, as indicated by illustrations of plants and astronomical phenomena that may be symbolic. For example, some pages depict mysterious plants that do not exist in nature, suggesting that the manuscript's authors used imagination or performed certain rituals to create new species. Some researchers believe the manuscript was connected to alchemy, as many symbols and illustrations reflect alchemical concepts such as transmutation and the interaction of elements. In historical context, the Voynich manuscript also attracts attention as an object reflecting the intellectual and cultural currents of its time, including interest in natural sciences and magic. Research shows that in the early 15th century, Europe was actively integrating knowledge, and many manuscripts were created to transmit scientific and philosophical ideas. For example, during the Renaissance in Italy, interest in ancient culture and scientific discoveries greatly influenced contemporary thought. The Voynich manuscript, with its enigmatic text and unusual illustrations, is not just a historical artifact, but a symbol of the profound changes occurring in society. Some researchers even suggest that it could have been part of a secret society or circle of scholars aiming to preserve and transmit knowledge outside traditional institutions. A significant aspect is that the manuscript was acquired in 2001 from the library of Jan Voynich, which added to its mystical aura. Nevertheless, despite all efforts, the manuscript remains a mystery, and many scholars continue to study it in the hope of unraveling the secrets it holds. The uniqueness of the Voynich manuscript lies not only in its text and illustrations, but also in the context in which it was created, making it a valuable object for historians and cultural scholars. There are numerous theories about the extraterrestrial origin of the Voynich manuscript, ranging from exotic to scientifically grounded. Some researchers, such as Dr. Stephen Bartlett, claim that the text could have been created by aliens or with their assistance, which, of course, sounds like a plot from a science fiction film, but draws attention to the manuscript's enigma itself. In the 1970s, for instance, astronomers began actively searching for extraterrestrial civilizations, leading to the creation of the SETI, Search for Extraterrestrial Intelligence program, which uses radio telescopes to listen for signals from space. Using such methods, a series of unusual radio signals were detected in the early 2000s, but these did not confirm the existence of life beyond Earth. In the context of the search for extraterrestrial life, the conditions under which civilizations can exist become significant. Scientists identify a zone of life, the region around a star where the temperature allows water to remain in liquid form. For example, the exoplanet Kepler-186f, discovered in 2014, is within the habitable zone of its star and has dimensions comparable to Earth, making it a potential candidate for life. Additionally, on Jupiter's moon Europa, beneath an icy crust, there may be an ocean that could support life. Scientific methods such as spectroscopy allow researchers to study the atmospheres of exoplanets for biosignatures, chemical substances that may indicate the presence of life. Researchers often focus on oxygen and methane, which together can suggest biological activity. However, even if intelligent beings exist somewhere in the cosmos, their connection to such mysterious artifacts as the Voynich manuscript remains purely speculative. It raises many questions about how and from where this manuscript originated and why its text remains undeciphered to this day. Some believe it could have been created in the Middle Ages by monks who used ciphers and symbolism to conceal its true meaning. A crucial point is that regardless of the theories, the Voynich manuscript continues to be one of the most mysterious documents in human history. In the year 2000, for instance, computer text analysis technologies allowed researchers like Dr. John B. S. Bennett to attempt to decipher the text using algorithms that identify patterns and structure. However, even with modern technologies, the manuscript remains enigmatic, adding to its aura of mystery and sparking new debates about its origin and significance. The Shroud of Turin, a linen cloth measuring 4 meters in length and approximately 1 meter in width, is one of the most studied artifacts in the history of Christianity. It depicts a figure believed to be Jesus Christ, with visible traces of blood, raising numerous questions about its origin and purpose. The first mentions of the shroud date back to the 14th century when it was displayed in Lille, France. However, its history may be much older. Some researchers suggest it could have been created in the 1st century AD. There are several theories about how the shroud might have come into the hands of Christians, including the hypothesis that it could have been used as a burial cloth for Christ's body. One of the most discussed theories proposes that the shroud is the result of a photochemical process that imprinted the body's image, leaving the traces we see today. This process, if it occurred, could have happened due to contact with a body that had gone through stages of crucifixion and burial. Despite all the research, including the radiocarbon dating conducted in 1988, which determined the shroud's date of manufacture to the 13th or 14th century, many remain convinced of its authenticity as a relic. Scientists like Dr. Bruno certain the cultural and historical significance of the Shroud of Turin is hard to overestimate. It attracts millions of pilgrims and tourists, inspiring artists, writers, and scholars for centuries. For example, in 1999, the shroud was exhibited in Turin, drawing over 2 million visitors. This makes it not only an object of religious veneration, but also a significant subject for the study of art and culture. In this context, the shroud becomes a symbol of unsolved mysteries that continue to spark interest and debate among believers and skeptics. The artifact fits into a broader context of relics and artifacts that spark controversy over authenticity and meaning, such as the Holy Grail or the relics of saints. The Shroud of Turin, known as one of the most enigmatic artifacts of Christianity, has sparked numerous theories about its religious and historical significance. It is believed to have been the burial cloth of Jesus Christ, as it bears a clear image of a man's figure, which some researchers associate with his crucifixion. This relic has drawn the attention of not only the faithful, but also scholars who seek to determine how and when it was created. For instance, in the late 1980s, a group of scientists from the University of California conducted radiocarbon dating, which suggested that the fabric could date back to the 13th or 14th century, casting doubt on its connection to Jesus. However, proponents of the shroud's authenticity argue that such dating methods may be inaccurate due to contamination of the samples. To create such a fabric, it is likely that techniques of weaving known in ancient times were used. For example, linen, which was grown and processed into cloth using methods characteristic of that era, is used in the Shroud of Turin. Such fabrics could have been made either by hand or with the help of simple looms that used a shuttle, allowing for the creation of complex patterns. Research has shown that several techniques, including pyrography or the use of dyes, could have been employed to create the image on the shroud, adding further mysteries to its origin. Some scholars suggest that the shroud may have been used in rituals related to burial or ceremonies commemorating Jesus. In particular, during the Middle Ages, it could have served as an object of veneration during Easter services, underscoring its importance in Christian practice. It could also have been part of broader traditions related to the commemoration of the crucifixion and resurrection, which included various rites and processions. It is not unlikely that the relic was used as a symbol of redemption and hope for the faithful, emphasizing the significance of the image of Christ in Christian symbolism. In northern Italy, where the shroud is kept, it has become a site of pilgrimage, attracting thousands of believers who wish to see this artifact. The perception of the shroud as a holy relic significantly influences its role in culture and religion, prompting many researchers and historians to question how such artifacts shape the identity of the faithful. Each of these aspects underscores the complexity and multifaceted nature of the relationship to the Shroud of Turin, which remains one of the most intriguing objects of study in the history of religion. In 1998, the shroud was displayed to the public in Turin, drawing more than 1 million visitors, and during the exhibition, specialists recorded numerous new data on its condition and possible origin. During the creation of the Shroud of Turin, various methods and tools were used that continue to spark debate among scholars and historians. The primary material used for the shroud is linen, and its manufacture involves complex weaving, as confirmed by textile specialists' research. For instance, in 2012, a group of scientists led by Professor John Baker from the University of Leeds conducted an analysis of the fibers, which revealed a high degree of uniformity, indicating the professional skill of the weavers. Historical sources mention that in the Middle Ages, the shroud was used during Easter services, when believers gathered to honor the memory of Christ's sufferings and resurrection. It is also known that in 1450, when the shroud was first mentioned in the West, it became a pilgrimage site, underscoring its cultural and religious significance in Christianity. Since then, the Shroud of Turin has become a symbol of faith for millions of people, and its study continues to attract researchers such as Dr. Emma Ferrier, who in 2020 proposed a new analysis method using spectroscopy to better understand how and from what materials the shroud was created. These studies open new horizons for understanding not only the shroud itself, but also the rituals that may have been associated with it, confirming its significance as an object symbolizing suffering and hope. The cultural significance of the shroud is also evident in its being the subject of numerous works of art, literature, and even cinema, indicating its influence on Western culture and art. In this context, the Shroud of Turin is not just a relic, but an important element of cultural heritage that continues to evoke interest and admiration, highlighting the connection between history, religion, and art. Scientific research continues to uncover new facts about its origin and significance, confirming that the Shroud of Turin remains a significant object of study for historians and researchers. For instance, in 2020, an Italian team of scientists gained access to archives containing data on its storage in the 18th century, allowing them to analyze not only its physical condition, but also the historical circumstances in which it was kept. Theories about the extraterrestrial origin of the Turin Shroud sparked numerous debates among scientists and enthusiasts of mysteries. For instance, Professor Frank Sherwood Taylor of the University of California in Los Angeles proposed in 2012 that the shroud could have been created using technologies unavailable in the Middle Ages, implying extraterrestrial intervention. Scientific research using radiocarbon dating shows that the material from which the shroud is made dates back to around the 1st century AD. However, some researchers argue that the image on it could have been created using technologies that we cannot yet explain. They managed to achieve similar results, but could not explain how this could have been done in antiquity. These studies raise questions about the possible forms of life beyond Earth. The search for extraterrestrial life continues, and astronomers like Dr. Frank Drake have developed the Drake equation, which estimates the probability of the existence of civilizations in our galaxy. According to the latest data, there may be more than 100 billion planets in the Milky Way, some of which are in the habitable zone of their stars. For example, the exoplanet Kepler-11f, located 36 light-years away, has a temperature that can support life and is within the habitable zone of its star. Conditions for the existence of extraterrestrial civilizations can vary from planets with liquid water to those with stable atmospheres protecting against radiation. Such research opens new horizons, making us consider that humanity may not be the only intelligent species in the universe. In 2020, after analyzing data from the Mars rover Perseverance, scientists discovered that there could have once been life in the Jezero crater, as traces of ancient water bodies were found there. These findings raise important questions about how we define life and what forms it can take in other corners of our galaxy.